Oh, we live. Are looking live in what used to be the GovCast. What? Hey, happy Wednesday. You are looking live at the GovCast from around America. Happy Wednesday, happy February. Michael Danker.
Jack Sonny, happy February.
Yes. Welcome to February. We, those who follow the show, we led up to the end of last year talking about goal setting and what this would be. So as we hit February 2nd, how are your goals going, Mike?
You know, it's so cool. My goals are going great. Some of them, you know, there's this thing out there called the law of attraction. I don't know what to do with that, but I put on my vision board, I would own a paddle board. One of the upper right-hand corner of my vision board is a paddle board. And my son went to a sales meeting 2 weeks ago, and he won a paddle board. He didn't tell me what he won, but he came home and he goes, "You can check the box, Dad." And so, you know, when you put it on your vision board it's out there. You know what I mean? It's out there, baby. And so
you have to see if the production team can find that. Your vision board's a graphic back there somewhere. So
it's there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. And
wow.
So
that was unplanned. That was completely impromptu. Nice job backstage.
Way to go. And so you know, I got to check that box. Now but he brought it over, and it happened to be 48 degrees that day when he brought it over. So it'll be a couple more weeks maybe before it's actually my feet on that paddleboard moving it around, but definitely moving forward. I was pretty excited about that. And then
or Florida, pour you down to 48. We all have empathy.
Well, none of us were going into the water, whatever our temperature was, whether it was sub 48 or not.
Yeah. I hear you.
That wasn't the weather. It wasn't the water I wanted to learn how to paddleboard in. And so
I'm sure it'll be fine.
You know, but we've got some people think we have 2 football games left. Some people would argue we only have one. But either way, we've had an amazing run of 2 weeks, 6 football games.
Ooh, yeah,
all-time greats.
Yeah, I think almost every one of them last play, right? Well, I guess the Rams 49ers second, third to last play, but every one down to last been amazing. The NFL super happy, right? You know what they are holding their breath on though? For the Super Bowl would be like the halftime show, right? For those old hip hoppers, that group they got fired up there. The dump button. Somebody has their finger on the dump button. We'll talk about that next week. But that's so funny. Some like Snoop, Dre, Eminem. I mean, who knows that? Whew, Pepsi put their name on that. That'll be gutsy. So, that'll be an interesting Super Bowl halftime show. last year down in Miami though, we went all like kind of Latin themed last year. So that was also a lot of shaking at that halftime show. So listen, why don't you, Mike, you want to introduce yourself officially?
Sure. Mike Danker, the business coach, sales trainer. I've been in sales for 30-something years. Love people. I want to help. My goal, my personal mission in life outside of my vision board is to make the people I meet better. And so, Jack and I were talking about this idea of putting together, making a pivot on what we do here every Wednesday and maybe even more frequently. But it's right into my wheelhouse, and why I believe I was born is to help other people be better. And I've made a whole career out of it. And I look back at my career and I see the people that are doing better, promoted, making more money, living better lives. That's when I look back and say, that's what I'm most proud of.
Yes. Listen, so for the audience, I have a confession. Right. So we've been running the GovCast for about 1.5 years. And so my full far-hearted confession would be like, it is hard to talk about government sales and procurement for 1.5 years with any energy around it. So we have done that, carrying the company flag, organization, GovSpend Smart Procure, which has been wonderful. but really not been the my heart's desire. If you watched the show over the last couple of months, we've slowly moved away. So in full confession, we're literally going to see a bunch of things. There's a bunch of updates that we're going through. So for those of you that saw the LinkedIn post, there's a series of things you're going to see happen with the LinkedIn Live. Those being in no particular order. We're actually getting a sponsor for the show, believe it or not. So I.Help. Actually, we're going to have a sponsor for the show. And if you're unfamiliar with I.Help, I encourage you to go to their website. Amazing platform, particularly now in the era of COVID. In the old days, you'd have a business card and you'd hand out your flyer or you'd send some stuff. And a lot of that doesn't happen today. And so I.Help is aggregating all of your online presence and contacts and a way for you to interact with people all in one spot. All your social media, the ability to share files, do online scheduling, web. There you go. There's a website. Do your web meetings, all of it aggregated in one spot under whatever URL you want. Amazing little platform. It's like $5 a month. Amazing. And so they're going to be our new sponsors going forward. So you'll see that. And so with that, we're going to have some new branding with the show. Mike Danker's been here a while now. And Mike and we have a couple of folks lined up as some new folks that'll be a part of the show on a regular basis and some new branding. Instead of being the GovCast, we will have a new name, a new official name with potentially, as Mike just hinted to, maybe a new time, a new show routine. And so all of that, that backdrop, the changes and some of the things will happen would really be, as Mike just hit on, really talking about as we led in the end of last year and folks looking for opportunities, we're really going to expand our LinkedIn Live or this LinkedIn Live to talk about, hey, how do people achieve success? How do you focus on the people part, the development of people? And so, because I would just say a lot of folks, the process of achieving success is like this black hole, right? A lot of folks are kind of like chasing success, want to be successful, but both identifying what that is for everyone, because we all know what the society, what the world says, you should have a money and a fast car and a beautiful maid and all this money. And then when you go to the other side of that, you're like, none of that really brings happiness and true success. And then once you're able to identify the things that you should be chasing and that make you successful, like how do you actually achieve that level of success? And so that would really be the focus of how we're going to spin this LinkedIn Live. We really want to do this thing. We really want to focus on people and help them achieve success. And so that's really the goal of the going forward plan. Well, Mike mentioned that, in his intro. And so how do we help people achieve what they're doing, both finding their success and then how do you achieve it? Because a lot of young folks actually they're not really sure, right, Mike? They're like, hey, what should I be chasing? And then how do I get there, right?
There's graphics all over the internet show us, here's the 7-step plan to reach your goals, right? Here it is. Here's the plan. Here's the step-by-step. Here, like, why aren't you achieving your goals? And that's what I would end up with. It's how come I'm not achieving all of my goals? It looks so simple.
Yeah.
And the steps are pretty consistent. The steps are not the trick. It's always in the doing, right? It's in the doing the steps that you realize how many, for some reason, the word sand trap just came into my mind, but our life is laden with sand traps. Sometimes there's landmines, but sometimes there's sand traps. You get in them and you get stuck there a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's not it's not an easy way to get out or an obvious way, but maybe that's what we can help people do as well, Jack, is avoid a few sand traps along their journey.
It's so funny you mention that. For our audience, we literally don't necessarily compare notes as we do it. We just have a theme or two. And so one of the most adamant notes I put in all caps on my notes for the show is like this thing. It's funny that you brought that up. When you look at folks, we all know that, whoever, Tony Robbins or Gary Vee or Grant Cardone or, Steve Jobs or you pick it, right? Michael Dell, you name it, right? Elon Musk, whoever your famous, successful person, whether it's in music, some of the thing, whatever it is, we see them. And I would just say this, when you're on the outside, it always looks simple, right? It always looks simple. And so that's so crazy because it's not, right? We go into someone in your life, forget the famous people. Just look at the circle of people in your life. And if you're social media connected to them, right? You only see their success, right? Most people on their social media, it's all about, look, right, the people part. You have to focus on people, right? It's like you see how they achieve success and it looks, or you see the good part of their life, and that's all you ever see. You watch someone's social media accounts, like, look at Betty, look at Tom. They're actually traveling around, they're doing their thing, look at that. They're out at dinner, they're at some function, all these different things. And like it makes it look so easy. And the reality is it's not, right? It's just not. That's just this persona, this mask that people put on their life. And even when you're further away for the super famous people, you may think it's easy, but it's not easy, right? The thing I always say to our team is like, if it was easy, everyone would have done it, right? If there's easy, there's not much success, there's not much gratification, and there's certainly not much money in it. Anything that's easy, unless you hit the lottery, there's not a lot of success in it, right? And so it just appears that way. And so that's really a false trap that a lot of people can fall into, right? It's like this, oh, that was so easy. Look at what they're doing, right? It's like, it's such a false trap, right?
Well, and there's a funny saying that people say when a lot of tragic news around people's lives, and when somebody's life ends early and sometimes at their own hands, we say they had it all. I don't get it. They had it all. Well, they had a lot of something, but they didn't have it all. Yeah. If they would have had it all, we wouldn't be reading the story the way it is right now. And I don't know if you've ever seen that, where people put their goals together and it's in a circle, and each aspect of your life, whether it's 6, 7, or 8, depending on which pictogram you look at, but there's 6, 7, or 8 that look like pizza slices. Oh. And it says, how are you doing in this pizza slice? And how are you doing? And then you put the pizza together and it's the wheel, right? And so when all of the pizza slices are healthy, the wheel goes smooth, right? But if one of those pizza slices is way out of whack, and then another one is underdeveloped, you're just, you're going through life. Your wheel isn't rolling very smooth because it's out of whack. And we as a society look on at one of your pizza slices, and if you're crushing it on that pizza slice, we say, you've got it all. Well, no, you're really just killing it in 1/7 of your life. Yeah. And the other 6/7 could be an absolute train wreck. We just don't care to know about that. Right. Well, we're just like, oh, no, tell us about where you're great. Don't tell me where you're struggling.
But you mentioned the football thing. I didn't have this queued up, but when you were talking, it made me think about Tom Brady, right? So Tom Brady just announced his official retirement. My sister hits me up and is like, there's got to be something behind the scenes. He's at the top of his game. It came out kind of out of nowhere. He's obviously older. His career had a ton of success, but it seems sudden for literally the guy that's at the top of his game, led the NFL in so many stats, right? But there is a video, it's on YouTube. When he talks about, I think he's about halfway through his number of Super Bowls, and he's like, man, there's got to be something more. There's like, I have it all, achieve success, won a bunch of Super Bowls, have a ton of money, married to a supermodel. You know what I mean? It's like, there's got to be more. And like, it seems from the outside, maybe that reprioritization is starting to happen for him, right? He's like, listen, my kids are getting older. I've done this 22 times. And so it is clear on the outside that one of the most famous people in the world of football has done something to reprioritize, because it was based upon his performance, he'd be back, right? Even his head coach was like, we totally expect him back. And then suddenly, either via health or family or reprioritization of what he really deems as successful, he is now retired almost at the peak of his game with the best stats he's ever had, right? That video online of like, there's more, right? And so that's what we'd really love to dive in on this LinkedIn Live, is to kind of bring some guests on, talk about it kind of behind the scenes. Because I would just also say, as somebody, especially when I was younger, trying to figure out, what does it look like? Like, how do I get there? You see it. We all see it. Some part of it's luck, right? So part of it's luck. We all need a little luck. But there are certainly foundational things, as Mike mentioned, that can help folks get there. And too often it's overlooked, right? It's like the social media problem. It's just so easy. Tomorrow I'm going to be a online social media millionaire, right, Mike? It's tomorrow. When I interview people, and if I tell somebody early 20s, by the time I'm 30, want to be a multimillionaire and retire. You're like, doing what, bro? I don't know yet, but a lot of people do it, right? So that's the part we really want to dive into and like share and expound upon. Like the Tom Brady, we can talk the Tom Brady factor. Like what would make somebody reprioritize and chase true success over what the world deems as success, right?
And what did he say? Like his story is, I've got other pizza slices.
That's
He
what
really said it. Like,
right.
listen, this is just one of my pizza slices. I've got other pizza slices that this pizza slice is costing me too much to maintain at the level that I want to maintain it.
Yeah.
And it's affecting my other pizza slices. So
Yeah.
wait a minute. I got a lot of value in there. I've worked for 44 years. He's been working at being a football player, but at the same time, that has built a platform for him where, listen, if this is in the way of what I have designed, I've designed a life, and now this is more in the way than it contributes, right? And so that's what he's saying. We'll have to stay tuned to see if he's right, because he is going to taste. There's a platform he used to stand on that was, I am the GOAT.
Yeah.
I am a current quarterback in the NFL, and I am the GOAT. Now I'm a retired quarterback in the NFL. I'm still the GOAT, right? But it's just a different platform, and it's probably not quite as high, to the humans around him.
I go to the basketball game. I'm in the Houston area, and the Warriors were in town. So Houston stinks, but the Warriors were here, so I wanted to go see Stephen Curry, and my niece and nephew were in town, and so she's a huge basketball fan and wanted to go see a game. So we went Monday night. So Stephen Curry's there, and we go to the game. And she loves Jordan. That's what got her into basketball. Because you looked at her, you're like, you're a basketball fan? Blonde hair, blue eyes. You're like, huh. Like, she's a nurse. You're like, I never seen you even talk about basketball. She goes, love Jordan, love The Last Dance, love it. And I'm like, yeah, when he finished with the Wizards, it was weird. She was like, what? You know what I mean? She was like, what? I go, yeah, he finished with the Wizards. She's like, what? I go, yeah, he retired. And then you get the itch and the platform changes, right? And you're like, and he came back for the Wizards for 2 years. And we actually went to see him one of his last games. They played Miami down in Miami. Went to see him play in a Wizards uniform. They didn't make the playoffs, and that was one of his last games. I think he had one other game after that. But it will be interesting to see if Brady holds out, or if he's, if this is it, or if he has one more, run back in him. So, but I want to get back.
Brady hit his numbers. I was just thinking about it, that Brett Favre, as a lot of people considered him to be the GOAT, right? How many times did Brett Favre retire? He retired a Packer, and then he broke all the rules and retired as a Viking, right? Yeah. And then broke all my rules and retired as a Jet, And so it's amazing how it's like, I thought I could live without it. And there's so much in there between your I and your R, right? Your identity and your role. And if your identity is wrapped up in your role, you're going to struggle when the role goes away. But I think just, we'll find out. But watching Tom Brady navigate life, we've been able to see him navigate life and football. And, maybe he sees himself as a 10 without the pads on. And that's what we all want to do in our lives, right? We want to inherently believe that we're a 10 out of 10
wherever we go
without our role. Yeah. Right. As opposed to saying I'm a 10 in my role, and outside my role, I'm a little shaky. Like, hey, your role is just part of the game. Right. And so, but there's we want to be a 10 in the whole pizza, or at least a 10. Actually, you want to be a 10 no matter how your pizza looks. And then you're just a 10 working on it.
Yeah. Making it better. Adding pepperoni to your pizza.
Amen.
It's interesting. All the athletes, a lot of the athletes, there's two parts they always talk about, right? It's the crowd. Right. There literally is not that the rest of your life for most people. Right. You don't get to walk out in front of 60,000 people every week unless you're a super, super well-known Tony Robbins type person. Right. Like, so that's a thing. Right. I've had these people, right, autograph and all that stuff. And then they always talk about the locker room, right? Having a family, a work environment where you're able to, bond with folks that are sharing a similar struggle, trying to achieve a certain level of success. In sports, it's very obvious. Hey, we're trying to win a championship and being related. And I just think so much of that, transfers over to the business world or even a nonprofit. Like, hey, can I find a group of people that synergize, relate, get along, and have a common goal, right? Like, hey, how do I lock in? And that dynamic can be so exhilarating. It's why folks join an organization, a startup. They're like, oh, I'm energized by what we're trying to get done. And so that dynamic, athletes always talk about, right? Hey, I want to play in front of people. Oh, that's definitely gone. And then, hey, can I find some kind of bond, message, organization, team that we can go pursue something great, right? And so it's been rare for a lot of those folks to leave the athletic world and then have a similar success in the private sector or after their career. Some have, some it seems like more prevalent now as folks are taking advantage of social media and their platforms, and they start that transition early. Like LeBron's already in 20 things. Serena Williams is already in 20 things as they wind down their career. So maybe it'll be easier, but that's the things people seek, athletes seek, great athletes, and I think we all seek, right? Hey, I want to do something bigger. I want to be part of a team. I want it to be great, right? Those are such carryovers. Maybe too much time on Tom Brady because I don't like the Patriots, or the Bucs, but very relatable, right? Mike's a Dolphin fan, so he's 20 years.
I struggle in a lot of ways. My wheel, if my football team is part of my wheel, my pizza slice is struggling. But there's so many things to look at, though, that as a professional athlete, it's hard to imagine. Most people don't think they're going to live to be less than 80. Like when you're 9 years old, you don't go, I'm going to die before 80. Like 80 seems like a million miles away, but I'm going to live to be 80. Well, also, and I'm going to grow up to be a professional athlete. Well, odds are you're going to, if odds are you're not going to make it to be a professional athlete. But if you do, 100%. The odds are you've got 2/3 of your life that are past your retirement as a professional athlete. Right. I mean, it's in your 30s. It's in your 20s. Like
most people, Most people, it's 2 or 3 years. I mean,
and they're out and they made it. Like they've got a great story for the rest of their life. Like, hey, I used to hire a lot of guys that played minor league ball or they played D1 and listen, you're like, wow, you made it way farther than most people.
Yeah.
But even if you make it all the way to what every sport refers to as the big show, it's going to be over, and 2/3 of your life are probably still ahead of you, right? And so what are you going to do with the rest of it? This was great, but it's going to be a part of your life for most of your life. It's going to be part of your history. Most of your life, it's going to be part of your history, and you dedicated all of your life to getting there.
Yeah.
It's a really strange transition. However, some of them are doing it really, really well. And like anything, some of them are doing it really, really poorly.
I think most are struggling, right? Like somebody who runs kind of, around some semi-successful athletes, like that, when it ends, like I've, some, especially, the fellows that are in high-end football, like they're like, if they don't make the pros or year out, they're not sure how to do a resume. What am I supposed to do? It's so myopic. Like I'm making the league. And now it's like, okay, that's over. I got injured. I didn't make it. And then you're like, all right, well, bro, you got to get a resume together. And they're like, what, a resume? You know what I mean? Literally, they're like, well, it has on it, I did football. I was, there's football. and then you're like, oh, so it's real though. That tie back to what we, where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Like that's a real thing. It's like, it's not bad to have such a myopic focus on a thing, but as long as, I was talking about this with my family the other day. It's like, as long as you know the consequences of that and have a plan B, like the debate we were having is, hey, a lot of young people, it's like, you got to go to a 4-year school. Like, that's just the thing you hear. After high school, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. And you're like, not everyone's cut out for college. It's just, in the old days, you used to go to military. And like people were like, nah, I don't know if I want to get bullets, shot at. So college became the thing. But a lot of people, at 18, maybe you're not ready for the real world, but they're not ready for college either. Like it's not part of their future. It doesn't help them. And now, as we've all seen the cost of it, you could leave a 4-year college with some liberal arts degree, what have you, and you're not ready. And not only that, you're not ready for what you think maybe you want to do. You're now $100,000 in debt, right? And maybe that's okay if you consciously made those decisions. But a lot of people don't, right? They're just like, well, society says I just graduated high school. I got to go to college because I don't have a college degree and I won't make it. Well, reality is, again, that's a semi-false bill of goods for a lot of people, because if you go out in the real world with not a clear idea of what you want to be, $100,000 in debt, you are now in a big valley you're fighting your way out of, probably for the next 15 to 20 years, right? And so, that's really one of the many things you want to talk about on the LinkedIn Live going forward. It's like, hey, when you're making those choices, like, have you assessed all the probabilities? And most importantly, actually, please, please, please do not follow what the world says. That I can tell you will be the running theme you'll see all the time. Because great success, everyone we know, their names, didn't follow the world's advice. They did things differently. They went against the grain. If you talk about, we've been talking about sports too much, right? But those folks, Tom Brady, psychotic in his health, in his training, in his film study, not following the world view at all. So it's like, hey, whatever you think you want to do, big success, big satisfaction is found in going against the grain, not doing what the world says. So please don't follow the herd that typically winds up unhappy and unsuccessful, right?
It's amazing that as you think about the failures they probably endured, right? That all these great people, we talk about how far they've come, but that's what I love about the 30-30s on ESPN and the behind the scenes that,
I love
Brady's story starts out like most people's story, that first of all, he made it to D1 football and got to play quarterback at a D1 school. So he's way ahead of whatever the crowd is. He's already one in 100,000 of the crowd, right? But from that position, it doesn't look like he's going to make it. It looks like he's got a career as a backup. I mean, he's taking I'm going to make a big living as a backup quarterback in the NFL. And, somehow he decided to take action. I wish I knew exactly what the actions were, because that'd be a good actions to consider. But he made a pivot to say, I am going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm going to change. I'm not honest. I'm not in this to be a backup. I'm in it. The world doesn't realize I expect to be a starter. Yeah. And he changed the minds of the people around him, because the world wasn't set up for him. He had to make some changes and to change some perceptions about him, that obviously if they had different perceptions, he wouldn't have gone in the round, 199th. He would have been picked third. If he was a starting quarterback in the NFL, he would have been picked third. Yeah. So they did not see it the way he saw it.
He has that Man in the Middle, that documentary now, that second one that's online. Like they're kind of following his Super Bowls. And
yeah. We
were talking to Lacey backstage, the producer, and she's like, I read 27 books or something crazy already this year, something outlandish. And it's funny you bring that up. Like, I couldn't do that one. But the things I do love, documentaries and or books, are about people's life stories. Like my bookcase, I put on LinkedIn some time ago, are really mostly about people's biographies, because I love what you just said. I love what's happening behind the scenes. Like, we all see the public success or public failures, by the way, right? That's a real thing too. People that do dumb things and are like, why did I do that? But I love the behind the scenes. Like, how did Oprah get where she is? You know what I mean? Like, how do people that get to that level? I love the stories, because, as I said earlier in the show, like, people just see the public part and they think it's easy, right? They're like, oh, look at so-and-so. It's so easy. Tom Brady just, that's his 7th, 10th Super Bowl. It just looks easy, but it's not, right? It's just not. It's a funny story or family, personal story. One of my nephews signed D1 today. So he signed, played football. Declan Dory's signed it, played Butler, D1 program. And so it's
fantastic.
So yeah, amazing. So, he played at a good school here in Florida, And, it's on the outside. And if you follow him, he has the look, right? He's like 6'4", GQ kid, smart. He's going to be an engineer. If you look on the outside, you're like, that kid, easy. We were just trading some texts last night. And if you just watched him, or you'd be like, yep, easy. And the text he sent me, true story, he said, been a roller coaster 4 years. That's what he said, and folks just don't see behind the scenes all of the ups and downs, and, you get injured and you transfer schools and the recruiting process, and, you don't hear from the people you want to, and some do, and things change, and your grades, and no one lives it. And I just one of the things I would love to do with this LinkedIn Live is to share, just like you mentioned, behind the scenes, what really happens and how folks persevere through that, overcome, both, again, setting real success goals that are probably not talked much about by the world, because that's where real peace and security and happiness are found, right? No doubt. And then how do you achieve those? Like, how do you achieve? The first part's hard, but can be done, right? But then I think a lot of folks today, with all the social media and I want to be a success tomorrow, and they see everyone making it, it looks like, right? Looks so easy. It's just all false. It's all this facade of fakeness. It just looks easy. And talking about the grind, talking about the decisions, talking about persevering through the tough times and overcoming, very little I see out there is about that time, the dark times. And I love those. I actually love when people go on social media and they tell their story of dark moments. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you don't know this, but I was whatever. I was really down in the dumps. I was depressed. I was out of sorts. We were dead broke. We lived in a car. You know what I mean? Whatever those things are, folks don't necessarily share. And you know what? You know, one last thing I would say is they only share them a lot of times after they've had success. And so it's so vulnerable to be able to share that while you're still in it, not knowing how it's going to end, right? The people that have the fortitude, like you mentioned, Tom Brady, look, you go look at his combine tape. That is one super out of shape, thin white dude running really slow. And you're like, not a chance. You know what I mean? Not a chance. And amazing to watch him become the best ever. And it's such, did not know this was going to turn into the Tom Brady show. But
you know, it's really interesting though, Jack, is just one last thing, maybe one last thing on Tom Brady, but you know, they make that comparison about when you're talking about the books, when somebody writes their success story, I love it when they say, I got a lucky break. It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they write a whole chapter on how they take that lucky break and they explain how their process led to that. And it's just so crazy. Like, that's not what happened. It's just a lucky break. Say it was a lucky break. It'll help me navigate my life.
Yeah.
But then the other part about comparing Belichick to Brady, and everybody's going, well, it looks like Brady got further than Belichick. Well, here's the thing. When Brady and Belichick get together weekly and share and grow and try to inspire each other about football, Belichick breathing into Brady is going to do more for Brady than Brady breathing into Belichick. Because Belichick's not going to develop a quarterback's mind from talking to Brady. He's a coach.
Right.
But Brady developing a coach's mind on top of a quarterback's mind is going to make him far better. He's standing on Belichick's shoulders. Belichick doesn't get the chance to stand on Brady's shoulders. That's just the way it works. So it's a silly thing to talk about but like, no. Brady's Brady because he's standing on Belichick's shoulders. And Belichick's Belichick because he's standing on the big, what's the big guy's name from the New York Giants? I'm drawing a blank. Parcells, right? So he's standing on Parcells' shoulders, you know, and it's like, it's so amazing. But we all, whether we're born with all the breaks, like you were talking about Declan, looks from the outside, the cover looks good, right? And on the inside, I'm sure it's good too. But he's got to navigate life the way the person who was born without any breaks. We've all got to figure out how to navigate life. And that's really what we're going to be helping folks do, is how to, no matter where you started, whether you started in the dugout or you started on third base, right? You might have a shorter or a longer journey to get home, but it's still a journey.
Yeah.
And every one of those journeys has a place where you can trip, you can fall down, you can literally get killed. And so we want to help people navigate the life that they have in front of them better.
Yeah.
Less roadblocks, less sand traps, more distance, right? Get further, and we'll all get further together, right? You want to go fast, go alone, right? You want to get far, you got to go together.
Yeah. And you know, I would say really humbly, the goal we'd endeavor, you know, going forward as well, is to share from folks that have had success. You know, one of my little pet peeves, again, well, is a confession, so in spirit of honesty, it's like, there's a lot of folks, particularly on this platform, that talk about, well, how do you achieve success and how do you have financial freedom and how you achieve happiness and all that. And then they don't, you know what I mean? And it's just not a fan. It's like if you knew behind the scenes, like taking advice, feedback from folks that have not achieved it, like that's really an odd one for me, right? So I would just say we endeavor to bring folks that have walked it, had success, lived it. So you hear firsthand accounts, not someone that goes, well, listen, my investment portfolio, I'm actually in debt 100 grand, but here you should put all your money in Bitcoin because I hear that's a really good thing. And there's a lot of that. Listen, on this platform, a lot of folks are like, "Ooh, I want to like be the voice. I want to talk about this." And you're like, "Okay, well, how's yours going? Like, how's your marriage? How's your career? How's your bank account? Those type of things." And when you pull back the covers, you're like, "Oh, not so good." So encourage you, whether you love what we do here or whoever you follow, take leadership from, inquire about, make sure that they are walking out and have seen the fruits of their labor, right? Because too many people will like put out stuff and endeavor to be like an online thing or have money or whatever, and they don't like. They always talk about a lot of real estate folks. They talk about it, but when you delve in, they don't like. I'm not necessarily the biggest Grant Cardone fan, but he's in the game at least. When he gives real estate advice, that dude's in his neck. When the market went down, he's living. Like, I respect that wholeheartedly. You're in it, but some of those folks are giving out real estate advice like, "Hey, well, do you own any properties?" You're like, "No, not really. I make all my money in selling these books, tapes, CDs, MP3s, and this training program." You're like, So we endeavor.
It's funny you say that, Jack. Just the opposite side of that coin. I went to a real estate. It was at the real estate board, but I got to go with my wife at as a guest. And the guy comes in to talk about investment real estate properties. He pulls up the MLS and he does the search on owners, and 40 properties came up in our county with his name as current owner. Like I'm in. Right. It's like all of a sudden you're like, what did he say?
Right.
When you're with the real deal, there's something, you just know it, right? And
I think they lived it, and that's what we endeavor to do with the show, is bring you like walk it out, coming from nothing. How do you get to the next level? And so just one other thing I wanted to pitch, hit on before we go. I think the production team has this graphic. So over the last couple of weeks, I ran across this Twitter post, which I really love, which seemed to describe our company and what I believe in. And so do you have that image backstage? Yes. I love this. Steve Rubinow is a technology leader in the Midwest, I think out of Chicago. And I love this. You probably can't read all the little things. I'll add it to the images as part of the GovCast. But this is like culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I love this. I saw it. I scanned it, captured it, comment on it, forwarded it. I loved it. And all those little things. Just talk about the people side, crush any strategy, any spreadsheet, anything that a company wants to do. And I just, somebody's either had the fortune or misfortune to like deal with building a couple of companies and deal with high-end financiers and folks out of New York and VCs and funds and blah, blah, blah. When the outsiders come in, I'll just tell you, it's like, what's the spreadsheet? What's the profitability? What's your ROI? ... And it's like, okay, yep, there's a place for all that. But not once in my 20-some year now entrepreneurial career do I have ever had any investor be like, hey, like, what's the people side? What's the culture you built? How will you sustain that? I actually pitched hiring an internal kind of cultural person. And I mean, the faces, the contortion of the board was like, what? And you're like, yeah, because without that, we're not going to get there. You can run all the spreadsheets you want, throw all the money at us you want, have the best product, have the best marketing. But the inside of the organization, again, going back to like Tom Brady loving his locker room, making it something that's full of leaders chasing the same thing. If your organization, if your company, more importantly for folks watching this show, if the people around you, right, are not on your team, right? If they're not on team you, hoping that you succeed, helping you, nudging you, holding you accountable, you're going to struggle. You are just going to struggle. And so really love that graphic and really totally believe in it. It's the people part, both in your organization and the people that are around you, that will determine so much of your success. Because not consciously, but a lot of times folks are like, there's this, I don't want them to be better than me, succeed more than me, have more money. And folks sometimes pull you down subliminally or in some odd way. And so making sure, again, the people that are around you, you hold close to you, hold dear to you, are actually on your team. And they're helping to build you up, encourage you, and oh, by the way, hold you accountable where they can speak into your life in both a positive and an accountability way. Be like, hey, you said you were going to do this, but now you're not. And be able to hear that, a mature, truly want to be successful person, being able to hear that out of love and not get pissed. We're great at getting pissed, right? What'd you say? You shut up. You're not doing it. You know what I mean? And so those are all variables. I love that post, and it really triggered. I was like, that is so much what I want to do with this LinkedIn Live instead of talking about government sales.
Do you know what Branson said? I think it was this morning on LinkedIn, but there was a quote of Branson that said, build up your people, make them so good that they can leave.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
But then make them feel so good they want to stay. Right. That's the leader's job.
Amen.
I love that.
Yes.
That like, because part of that, but part of that, what you were saying, Jack, about the people acquiring your company, what assets are they going to review? They are going to ask you about your executive team. They are going to ask you about who's the leadership of this thing you're handing over to me.
Yeah.
And the strength of that list of people is going to be based upon the people you invested in, right? You can't just make that happen. You've got to build those people up from the inside. And if you do, you're going to be proud to hand that list over and say, yeah, here's the people. And they grew up. They're all within.
Again, listen, again, sports analogy. Sorry. So for those not sporting, like just if Tom Brady really does retire and doesn't come back and reconsider over the summer, you never know, right? But if he does retire, just same parallel to the sports world or the business world, just think about the Bucs aren't going anywhere next year. I mean, he retires. I assume Gronk would retire. Like that organization, which was might win the Super Bowl, just did last year. One person leaving, it's not even the same organization, right? So do that inside your organization or your company or whatever. Like maybe it's not one person. A quarterback is highly, the NFL is highly dependent on a quarterback, but you take your organization or your circle of friends, and if one of them's not there, those of you who are married know if your spouse is not around, that's a game changer, right? Or in your support network, if one or two people are not there, or if your organization, one or two people are not there, 6 months from now, a year from now, it all falls apart, right? So it is so true, and those same parallels apply. Like, hey, who's in your circle? Are they helping to build you up? Do they want to be around? Are you making it advantageous for them to be around? Because it's symbiotic, right? You give and they give, and it's a win-win. And so just want to focus on that, share that, talk about that. I don't think there's anything over the next year we're going to bring up that people are going to be like, I've never heard that concept, but just want to peek behind the Wizard of Oz, want to peek behind the curtain, with the wizard and be like, ooh, here's what's really going on. That's the note I made when we were making new notes about the show. It's like, just want to peek behind the curtain and have folks share their vulnerabilities and then how they work through them to achieve some success in life, or how they are sustaining through some bad times, right? Believing that success is coming, kind of real world anecdotes, real world stories versus being like, today we're going to have on, whoever, Tony Robbins, he's going to tell you how great he is. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, well, whatever, And so trying to make it more personable, more real, so that folks can get themselves to the next level, because that's all we care about, right? We care about others, but if we're really honest, we spend most of our time, we're like, me, how do I get there? Me, my family, my group, my posse, my crew, are we on the right path? And so that's what we endeavor to do in the coming weeks, months, shows. And we're looking for a new name. So we are going to move on from the GovCast. So if someone feels excited, motivated, has a moment of inspiration, we have a couple nominees out there. But if you have a new name suggestion, again, we are going to focus on how to help people get to the next level, how to have success in their life. So that's where we're going in the coming year. So any last things, Mr. Denker?
I just look forward to the journey. Whoever joins this journey with us, I'm excited you're joining the journey with us, and I just can't wait. I look forward to sharing it with you.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, it's going to be all aspects. Like we're going to hit on some business things, some life things, some health things, some faith things, all those contribute, as Mike mentioned, the pizza.
Keep your pizza round.
Yeah, all of them have an effect.
In Chicago, we might go square, but outside of Chicago, it's round.
And thick and thicker. We'd like to make it thicker. So cool. So appreciate all your time and energy. Again, over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see us rebrand, rename. We might be with you more often, maybe at a different time slot. Stay tuned. We will communicate constantly. But the goal is to help all of us get to really the endeavor that we're striving for in our own minds. We wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning going, what's next? Amen? Cool?
Amen.
Thank you so much. See you all at least next Wednesday for whatever the show will be called. Appreciate your time and energy. God bless. Mike Denker, appreciate you. God bless.